Under the blood moon, I held the blade to my brother's throat, while the council screamed for me to burn my mate alive because she survived my bed. She stood in chains, the bond mark blazing across her skin, proof she was mine, and proof the law demanded her death. And in that moment, I had to choose. Crown. Or love. The chamber stank of fear. It clung to the walls thick as smoke, and even my wolf curled its lip at the sour taste of it. Prisoners knelt before me, wrists bound, heads bowed. Rebels. Or at least, that's what the council called them. To me, they were just more bodies to silence. I sat on the throne, stone cold beneath my palms, and watched the council squirm. They always wanted me to speak the words, as if my tongue was the blade that cut throats. "Your Majesty," a minister rasped, his robe trembling with each breath. "These wolves were caught smuggling coded scents across the border. The law is clear." Yes, the law was always clear. Betrayal was death. And still, they waited. Still, they needed to hear me say it. My voice came out low, steady, final. "Burn them!" The guards moved at once, dragging the prisoners away. Their cries echoed down the stone corridors until the doors slammed shut. Silence followed. Always silence. And in that silence, I heard her again. My Luna. Her last scream, the sound of betrayal breaking bone deep. My wolf snarled inside me, but not from hunger, from grief, from guilt. The memory never faded, no matter how many I sentenced. Love had been weakness. Trust had been a blade at my throat. I forced my shoulders back, wearing my coldness like armor. The ministers looked satisfied, but my chest was a hollow cage. Control was the only thing that kept me breathing. Control and fear. When the chamber emptied, a messenger lingered at the edge of the hall. His eyes darted to me, then to the floor. "Speak," I snapped. He swallowed hard. An Omega was taken with the rebels. She claims she is no fighter. The council, they suggest she be sent to your chambers, as tribute. The word twisted in my gut. Tribute. A pawn in silk wrappings, meant to amuse a king. My wolf stirred uneasily. "Why her?" I asked. The messenger's voice dropped. "She invoked the bargain, sire. One night in your bed, and the law grants her freedom." Freedom. A lie dressed as mercy. My wolf prowled at the edge of my skin, restless, suspicious. I leaned back in the throne, letting the shadows swallow my expression. A spy, perhaps. A trap, most likely. "Bring her," I said at last. And in that moment, something shifted in the air, as if fate had just knocked on my door. The chamber emptied, but the ghosts did not. They followed me down the torchlit corridor, their whispers caught in the crackle of fire, their screams stitched into the very stones. My steps led me back to my private quarters, a fortress within a fortress, and still I felt no peace. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and cedar. The scent usually calmed me, but tonight it clawed at my throat. My wolf paced, snarling, restless. He remembered too. He always remembered. I closed my eyes, and there she was. My Luna. Her hair tangled with blood, her eyes wide with terror and betrayal. The rebels had carved their lies into her heart, and I had been forced to end her life with my own hands. Her scream had been sharp enough to split bone. It lived in me now, a scar deeper than any steel could carve. Every night since, I had sworn the same oath. Never again. Never trust. Never love. Love was weakness. Weakness was death. I clenched my fists, the scar in my palm burning as if it agreed. Control. That was the only thing I had left. Control over my wolf. Control over my court. Control over the kingdom that looked to me with fear instead of devotion. My wolf growled, pushing against the walls I built inside myself. He wanted out. He wanted blood, warmth, the touch of something more than shadows. I shoved him down. I would not break, not again. A knock split the silence. Heavy, urgent. My guards. "Enter," I commanded. The door creaked open. 2 guards stepped inside, flanking a figure small in frame but cloaked in mystery. A veil hid her face, but I could feel her trembling from across the room. The scent hit me next. Sweet, sharp, threaded with something that made my wolf rear against my control. "The Omega," one guard announced. "The one who invoked the bargain." I stared at her, the firelight catching on the edges of her veil. My wolf surged forward, claws scraping, eyes blazing in the dark of my mind. Something shifted in my chest. Dangerous. Familiar. Wrong. And yet, as the air thickened between us, one thought pierced through everything. This was no pawn. This was fate. She stood in the glow of the fire, still cloaked, still trembling, but not in the way Omegas usually did before me. Fear had a scent, sharp and sour. This wasn't that. Her scent was different. Sweet, dangerous, threaded with something wild enough to make my wolf slam against my ribs. I circled her slowly, the way a predator circles prey it cannot quite define. My boots echoed on stone, each step heavy, deliberate. She didn't lift her head, but I could feel her spine stiffen, her chin tilt a fraction higher beneath the veil. "You know who I am," I said, my voice low. "Yes, my king." Her answer came steady, not broken, not pleading, too steady. I stepped closer, letting her scent drown me. My wolf snarled, torn between hunger and suspicion. Desire pulsed hot in my veins, unwelcome, undeniable. It had been years since my body reacted to anyone, and now my control wavered. "Do you know why you're here?" I pressed. Her hands tightened at her sides, but her voice remained calm. "The bargain." The word rolled from her lips like a blade. She was no innocent. She understood exactly what it meant. I let the silence stretch, heavy as chains, before I leaned close enough that she could feel the heat of my breath through the veil. "Last one night in my bed, and you walk free." No flinch, no hesitation, just the quiet reply. "Then I'll last." Too quick, too bold. Maybe she didn't know my bed was not a place for sleep, but where death or life can be determined. My wolf stilled, then growled low. I reached out and caught her chin in my hand, forcing her face upward. The veil shifted, revealing only the line of her jaw, soft yet unyielding. "Most Omegas beg. You bargain like a rebel." Her breath hitched, barely, but enough to betray her. I saw it, felt it. "You're hiding something," I murmured, tightening my grip just enough to remind her of who held power here. Still, she held my gaze from beneath the veil, silent, defiant. And in that silence, something raw stirred inside me. Something I thought had died the night I ended my Luna's life. Hunger, heat, fate. I released her sharply, stepping back before my wolf tore free. "We'll see if you survive the night." The chamber was too quiet. Shadows pressed in from the corners, the firelight flickered against the stone walls, and still she stood there, veiled, still, her chin high as if she hadn't just been thrown into a wolf's den. My wolf prowled inside me, teeth bared, impatient, but I kept him caged. Tonight was not about claws. Tonight was about silence, patience, control. I sat at the edge of the bed, motioning for her to step forward. She obeyed, though her feet moved carefully, each step measured. Smart. Too smart. "Do you know what this night means?" My voice was low, sharp. She nodded once, but I caught the faint tremor in her hands. "I survive until dawn. Then I'm free." Her words were steady, but her pulse beat fast at her throat. I saw it, heard it. My wolf wanted to sink teeth there, to taste the truth of her blood. "Wrong," I said flatly. "This is not survival. This is revelation. By sunrise, I will know exactly what you are." I let the silence hang heavy. The first hour was always the easiest to crack someone. People filled silence with confessions. She didn't. She stood like a statue, veiled and unreadable. My wolf growled, restless. So I waited, watching, listening, her every breath, the way she clenched her fingers when the fire popped. She did not lower her head like the others. She would not give me that satisfaction. By the second hour, I rose from the bed and began circling her, each step slow, deliberate. The scent of her skin drifted to me, and then something sharper cut through. Faint, but familiar. My blood turned cold. Coded scent. Rebel signals, written not in words but in the oils pressed into the skin. My wolf snarled in recognition, demanding blood. A spy. I stopped inches from her, my voice barely more than a whisper. Where did you get that scent? Her breath hitched, just for a heartbeat. Then she tilted her chin higher. I don't know what you mean. Lie. My wolf clawed at me, howling for her throat. Kill her now. End this. But I didn't move. I should have torn her apart, should have called the guards, but instead I found myself leaning closer, close enough to catch the heat of her skin beneath the veil, close enough to hear the stutter in her heart. Hour 3 became a game of words. My questions were blades, hers were shields. I pressed her about the rebels, about her past, about why she volunteered for the bargain. Her answers came quick, but not too quick. Calm, but not too calm. She was trained, taught to lie. And yet, when I brushed my thumb across the hollow of her throat, her body betrayed her. Her breath caught, her pulse leapt. Not fear, something else, something dangerous. Hour 4 broke the rhythm. She slipped. Just for a moment, her hand twitched toward the place on her arm where the scent lingered strongest. A tell. I caught it, and instead of striking, I smiled. A cold, cruel smile that had broken hundreds before her. You carry rebellion on your skin, I murmured, my wolf snarling agreement. The law demands your death. Her silence stretched, tight as a bowstring. And still she did not beg. By the final hours, I should have broken her, but she was still standing, her veil hiding her eyes, her body unbowed. The first Omega to survive my silence, my questions, my touch. When the fire cracked and the first hint of dawn bled into the sky, I found myself whispering words I had no right to speak. If she is a spy, the law demands her death. But why does my wolf refuse? And just like that, my fate was tied to hers. Dawn bled across the windows, pale light creeping into my chambers. She had lasted the night. Silent, steady, parrying every question with the grace of someone trained to lie. I should have broken her. I wanted to. Instead, I found myself listening to the cadence of her voice, the quicksilver wit beneath her feigned submission. Her body betrayed her more than her tongue ever did. The stutter of her pulse when I leaned too close, the tremor she fought to hide when my hand brushed her wrist. Suspicion clawed me raw. And yet, so did something else. A pull I didn't want to name. I rose from the bed, intent on ending the farce at dawn. That was when I saw it. A slip of paper, tucked beneath her pillow, at where she had laid briefly. Too deliberate to be overlooked, too dangerous to be innocent. Coded script, rebel ink. My wolf roared for her throat. My heart whispered hesitation. She was lying. She was mine. She was both. And with the sun rising, I knew one truth. Whatever she was, my fate was bound to her now. The council chamber reeked of fear again, though none of the ministers would ever admit it. They hid behind their silks and scrolls, their voices quivering as they spoke of rebel raids, burned patrols, coded scents found on couriers' skin. The rebellion grows bolder, Majesty, one of them stammered. They must have eyes inside our walls. Inside our walls. My jaw clenched. I thought of the slip of paper beneath Clarita's pillow, the inked codes I had recognized at once. The council was right. There were traitors among us, and she was the thread I could pull to unravel them. She was found with the rebels, another pressed. Yet she survives the night untouched. The law demands... I silenced him with a glare. They forgot themselves too easily. The law was iron, yes, but I was the hand that wielded it. I leaned back in my chair, letting them whisper their fears. In truth, I felt none. What I felt was fire. Clarita had lied to my face, carried rebellion on her skin, slept in my bed with a heart that beat too steadily for an innocent. I should have torn her apart before dawn. Instead, I found myself calculating. Not mercy, not pity, control. She could be my weapon. Through her, I could draw the rebellion into the open. Through her, I could unmask the ministers who shifted in their seats now, sweating more than prisoners awaiting sentence. I rose slowly, the scrape of the throne echoing like a blade drawn from its sheath. "This kingdom doesn't survive on fear alone," I said. "It survives on control. I'll decide what is done with the girl." The ministers exchanged uneasy glances, but none dared oppose me. They bowed their heads, murmuring their obedience. When I returned to my chambers, she was there still, veiled, silent, sitting as if she hadn't just walked through fire and survived. My wolf lunged against the cage of my ribs, eyes burning, claws raking at my control. "Kill her," he growled. But when her head lifted, when the faintest wisp of her scent reached me, the growl shifted. Low, possessive, final. Mate. The word crashed through me like thunder, leaving the council's whispers, the rebellion's threats, the iron law itself nothing but ash in its wake. She had survived the night, but survival didn't grant freedom, only my discretion. The council wanted her dragged to the pyres at dawn. The law gave me every right to order it, and still I kept her breathing. Not because of mercy, because of control. She was no subject of mine, no sworn wolf of my pack. She had been caught with rebels, carrying their coded scents like banners stitched to her skin. Her capture wasn't chance. They had placed her in my path, knowing the old law would drive her into my chambers. They thought her survival would weaken me, that an outsider Omega living under my roof would shame my throne. Instead, she was mine now. Not free, not trusted. A prisoner in silk. A thread I would pull until the rebellion's web unraveled. The fortress was a labyrinth of stone and shadow, and tonight I walked it like a ghost. No guards at my side, no council at my heels. Just me. And her. Clarita thought herself clever. She moved like mist, slipping through servants' corridors and forgotten stairwells, never once looking back. But I was always there, a step behind, a breath away. My wolf padded silently in my chest, restless, eager to see what game she played. At first, it was nothing, her hand brushing the wall as she passed, fingers trailing along stone. But the air shifted. My wolf flared, nostrils burning with the faintest trace of oil. Scent marking. Subtle, hidden in plain touch, but I knew the signs. A rebel's craft, a spy's trail. She was laying messages inside my own fortress. And still, I did not strike. My claws itched, my body coiled for violence, but I held back. I told myself it was strategy, that I needed proof, needed her to lead me to the heart of treachery. But the truth clawed deeper. I didn't want to end her, not yet. She paused at a fork in the hall, glancing both ways before choosing the darker path. I lingered behind, watching her shoulders tense, her breath catch. She knew someone was near. Still, she pressed forward. I followed her into one of the old armories, long abandoned. Dust cloaked the racks, cobwebs laced the beams, but she moved with certainty, as if she belonged. And then she hummed. Soft, low, almost absent-minded, the sound curling through the stale air like smoke. My body locked. The melody was a lullaby. A rebel lullaby. One I had heard once before, long ago, whispered against my skin by the only woman I had ever loved. My Luna. The night she betrayed me, she sang that very song. My chest tightened, breath ragged. My wolf surged, torn between rage and something I couldn't name. Coincidence? or cruel fate twisting the knife. She hummed again, unaware of the storm gathering inches behind her. I should have revealed myself, should have dragged her back to the council and laid her lies bare. Instead, I stayed in the shadows, listening, haunted, unable to look away. The fortress roof was a place of silence, a high crown of stone where I often came to listen to the wind and remind myself that nothing touched me. Tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't alone. Clarita's steps were soft behind me, the faint shift of her veil catching in the breeze. I hadn't invited her to follow. She'd slipped into my path like a shadow I couldn't shake. My wolf growled at her nearness, at the audacity of her scent threading through the night air, sweet and sharp, still carrying faint traces of those rebel oils no matter how she tried to scrub them away. I told myself I should send her back to her chamber. I told myself keeping her close was a mistake. But before I could open my mouth, movement flickered at the edge of my vision. Steel glinted in moonlight. The first assassin came from above, leaping across the gap between rooftops. Another rose from the dark, blades drawn, eyes feral. Not for me. For her. "Down!" I snarled, shoving Clarita behind me as the first strike came. My wolf ripped free of his cage, fury roaring through my blood. Claws burst from my fingers, my body twisting with the change as I met steel with flesh. The assassin's blade nicked my arm but shattered against the force of my strike. I tore him from the air, bones snapping beneath my grip, his scream ending as quickly as it began. Another lunged, another fell. It was frenzy. Pure, merciless frenzy. My wolf howled for more, demanded every last one of them be silenced for daring to touch what was mine. No, not mine. Enemy, spy, liar. But my body didn't care. Instinct didn't care. By the time the last assassin hit the stone, bleeding out beneath my claws, my chest heaved with the thrill of the kill. Blood slicked my hands, hot and thick, and the rooftop reeked of death. Clarita stood frozen against the parapet, veil askew, eyes wide. She was trembling, not at me, not at the carnage, but at the words the dying wolf croaked before his final breath. She lives. Under his watch. She'll crack. She'll give us all away. The last rasp faded, his body going limp. Clarita's gaze snapped to me, terror and something else burning in her eyes. She was breathing hard, clutching her arms tight to her chest as if to hold herself together. "They weren't here for you," she whispered. "They were here for me. Because I'm alive. Because you kept me." My wolf snarled at her words, furious, protective, wild. My heart pounded in my throat. The council had been right. The rebellion had planted her. She was their weapon. And yet, when steel came for her throat, I had bled to shield her. She stepped closer, voice breaking. "Do you understand? If they believe you'll crack me, they'll kill me before you can. I'm not safe anywhere in your fortress." My fists clenched, claws digging into my palms until blood dripped down my wrists. She was the enemy. She was the key to every traitor inside these walls. Keeping her alive was foolish. Keeping her alive was dangerous. And yet, I had. I met her gaze, the night pressing heavy around us, the corpses cooling at our feet. Her voice trembled, soft as smoke. "Why did you save me?" I opened my mouth. No answer came. For the first time in years, I had no oath, no law, no creed to shield me, only silence, only her. The rooftop stank of blood long after the bodies had been dragged away. I should have left her in her chamber, locked behind iron and guards. Instead, I found myself in the quiet of my study with her, veiled, silent, but trembling in the firelight. Her hands shook as she pulled the veil aside, just enough for me to see her eyes. Not submission, not defiance, just weariness, the kind carved bone deep. "You want truth," she said, her voice raw. "Then take it. I was never meant to live this long. A king once promised my family safety, and instead he took everything. I was a child when they burned." The words lanced through me sharper than any blade. I saw it in her gaze. She wasn't lying. The memory was there, bleeding behind her eyes. I should have turned away. I should have reminded myself she was a spy, a snake coiled in my walls. Instead, I stepped closer, my hand brushing her wrist. Her skin was cold, her pulse frantic beneath my touch. "I know betrayal," I said quietly. I buried my mate with my own hands because of it. Her breath caught, the faintest sound in the silence. And for one stolen heartbeat, the gulf between us narrowed. Her grief, my grief. Twin scars carved by different blades, yet cut from the same cruelty. The fire cracked, shadows stretching long across the floor. I caught myself watching her mouth, the way her lips parted as if she wanted to say more but couldn't. My wolf pressed forward, not with hunger this time, but with something dangerously close to longing. I turned away, fists clenched at my sides. Tenderness was poison. I had sworn never again, never weakness, never trust. And yet she stood there, her truth crawling beneath my skin, loosening stones I had mortared in blood. If she destroyed me, it would not be with steel. It would be with this. Truth laid bare, raw wounds pressed together until I couldn't tell where hers ended and mine began. I heard my own voice before I could stop it, low and harsh in the stillness. "You will ruin me." The plan had been simple. Too simple, perhaps. I let words slip, through her, through whispers she couldn't hide, that I would march a supply caravan through the eastern gate at dusk. A lie, bait for the rats gnawing inside my fortress. If the rebels moved, I'd know who they were. If she carried the message, I'd see it in their strike. The night fell, cold and sharp. I waited with guards hidden in the shadows, every sense tuned to the scent of treachery. They came. Assassins poured from the alleys, not for the phantom caravan, but for me. Blades flashing, jaws snapping, eyes black with frenzy. My wolf lunged to meet them, claws tearing steel, blood wetting stone. The air filled with screams and the stink of iron. It was too precise, too quick. They hadn't stumbled onto me. They had been told. And who had known? I fought like fire itself, but the fury inside me burned hotter than the battle. Each blade I shattered, each throat I tore. My gaze kept flicking to where I had last seen her, veiled and silent in the courtyard. Had she led them to me? Had she smiled behind her mask while I bled for her deceit? By the time the last assassin hit the cobblestones, gasping his last, my body shook with rage more than exhaustion. Blood streaked my arms, my chest heaving, my wolf pacing inside me like a storm contained. I knelt beside the nearest corpse, its hand still twitching, and saw it, carved deep into the flesh with fire or blade. A mark I knew as well as my own. A crest. Not the rebels, not the councils. My brothers. My vision blurred, fury blinding me for a heartbeat. The lost prince, the shadow they whispered of. My blood, vanished years ago, now surfacing as the rebellion's hand. The truth cracked through me like thunder. This wasn't only about Clarita. This wasn't only about spies. This was blood against blood, pack against pack, family against king. Behind me, I heard her step closer, voice trembling in the night. "You weren't supposed to die. I swear it wasn't meant for you." I turned, my claws dripping, my eyes locked on hers. The question ripped from me, raw and vicious. "Then tell me, why do they bear my brother's mark?" The crest burned in my vision long after the corpses cooled. My brother's mark, etched into rebel flesh as if it were scripture. I had thought him dead, his bones scattered on some forgotten battlefield, his memory buried beneath the ashes of war. But no, he lived, he led, and he had sent her to me, Clarita. I dragged her into the chamber, slamming the door until the torches rattled in their brackets. She flinched, but she didn't cower. That only stoked the fire in my veins. "Speak," I growled. "Who gave you your orders? Who made you accept my bed? Tell me their name." Her lips parted, But silence answered me. She lowered her gaze, trembling not from fear but from restraint. I seized her chin, forcing her eyes to mine. "Do not lie to me." Tears welled, shining in the dim light, but her voice was steady. "If I tell you, I doom us both." The words struck like claws. Rage exploded through me, my wolf battering at the edges of my control. The truth was there, waiting, and she dared withhold it. "Who?" I roared, slamming her against the wall. The stone shook with the force of it. Her breath broke, her hands pressing weakly against my chest. And then, like a knife sliding between ribs, the whisper fell from her lips. "Your brother." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. My grip faltered, though I did not release her. The air itself turned sharp, cutting at my lungs. "No." The denial ripped free, raw and feral. "He's dead. He's dust." Her tears slipped free now, trailing down her cheek. "He lives, and he leads us." My vision blurred red. The rebellion was not just wolves clawing at my walls, it was blood, my blood. My brother had placed her in my path, had turned her into his blade, had dared carve my ruin through her hands. I raised my claws, ready to tear her throat, to end the treachery, to silence the bond that threatened to unravel me. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer I could not hear. And then my wolf roared, not in rage, not in hunger. "Mate." The word shook through my marrow, tore my fury to shreds, and left me standing hollow, claws poised above the only woman I should kill, yet could not. The chamber stank of smug victory. Ministers huddled like vultures around a carcass, their gazes fixed on the figure kneeling in chains before them. Clarita. Her veil was torn, her wrists bound, and between her fingers lay a scrap of parchment, black with symbols even a fool could see were coded. "She carries rebellion in her veins. We do no understand why you keep her alive until now." One minister sneered. "We caught her in the servants' hall, whispering with a page. He thought her kindness strange and alerted us. We set the watch, and there she was, passing messages in your own fortress." The page. A trap. They had been watching her all along, waiting for her to stumble, and she had. My wolf pressed against my ribs, furious, protective. The council thought this proved her guilt. To them, it was over. To me, it was war. "The law is clear," another minister said, stepping forward, his voice dripping with false reverence. "She must burn before dawn. Anything less is treason, even from you, Majesty." The word burn thudded in my skull, loud as a war drum. Burn her, like the rebels they paraded before me. Burn her, like my Luna when her betrayal left me hollow. The ministers watched, eager, waiting for me to nod. Waiting for me to show I was still theirs. Cold, unyielding, a king of fire and ash. But when I looked at her, veiled and trembling, I did not see a spy. I saw her in the firelight of my study, whispering that a king once stole her family's life. I saw her on the rooftop, defying death, her eyes wide as she asked why I had saved her. I rose from the throne, each step echoing like a challenge. My voice carried steel and thunder. "She is under my protection." Gasps, murmurs, outrage. "You would defy the law for her?" one minister demanded, spittle flying. I bared my teeth. "I am the law." Silence fell, heavy and sharp. Clarita's gaze lifted, brushing mine like a question neither of us dared answer. The ministers would not forgive this. The rebellion would not stop. And I had chosen, for the first time, not with reason or law, but with something far more dangerous. Her. And with that choice, I knew I could never go back to the king I had been. The fortress slept uneasily, the weight of rebellion pressing against its walls like a storm at sea. I should have been in my chamber, sharpening blades, plotting council executions, sealing cracks in my throne. Instead, I stood in the shadows of the old chapel, waiting for her. Clarita. She came hooded, her steps soft as prayer. When she lowered the veil, the torchlight caught her face, pale, eyes haunted, lips pressed thin as if holding back a truth too sharp to name. "You should not have called me here," she whispered. "If they find us—" "They already suspect," I cut in. "Let them. I need answers. No more lies." Her hands twisted together, trembling. For a heartbeat, I thought she would retreat into silence, but then she looked at me, raw and unflinching. "The rebellion isn't what you think, not all of it. There are wolves who still fight for freedom, for the pack. But others—" Her voice faltered, as if naming them would turn her to ash. "Others serve themselves. They trade lives for coin. They would see the accord fall, humans at our throats, just to wear your crown." The words slammed into me harder than any blade. My brother's shadow, her presence, the council's treachery, all threads weaving into a snare that stretched far wider than I had imagined. "And you?" I asked, my tone a low growl. "Where do you stand in this corruption?" Her chin lifted, fragile but unbroken. "Trapped, bound by orders I never wanted, debts I could never pay. But I never came here to kill you." I searched her face, hunting for deception. My wolf surged forward, senses flooding with her scent. Fear, yes, but also truth. Not enemy, not pawn. Something more. For the first time, I understood. She was as bound as I was, caught between law and rebellion, forced into lies to survive. Something cracked inside me then. A vow I had carried like iron turned to dust. I was no longer fighting for throne, or crown, or law. I was fighting for her. The distance between us vanished. My hand found her cheek, her skin warm beneath my blood-stained palm. She didn't flinch. Her breath caught, soft and sharp. And then I kissed her. Not as king, not as judge, not as enemy, as mate. The night stank of smoke and iron. Clarita's words had guided me here, into the tunnels carved beneath the fortress centuries ago. She'd traced the map in whispers, every line of fear and memory showing me where the rebellion rooted itself like rot in my walls. And she had been right. The rebels thought themselves clever, hiding among the forgotten catacombs, their whispers masked by dripping stone and stale air. But I knew the scent of betrayal. I had tracked it all my life. Tonight, with her intel, I crushed it. Steel clashed against claws. Shadows screamed. My wolf tore through the dark with ruthless precision, breaking bones, silencing treachery. My guards followed, loyal and merciless, and when the last of the cell fell, the tunnels echoed with nothing but the sound of dripping water and my own ragged breath. Victory. Cold, clean, absolute. Or so I thought. When we emerged back into the fortress halls, the stench hit me first. Smoke, acrid and choking. Then the screams followed. High, raw, endless. My stride faltered, my wolf freezing in horror. The assassins had struck back, not at me, not at my council, at the innocents. The east wing burned, flames devouring stone tapestries, smoke pouring into the night sky. Mothers clutched children, their cries ripping through me like claws. Guards staggered, bloodied, cut down in doorways while trying to shield the helpless. I threw myself into the fire, dragging wolves from collapsing beams, snarling orders to douse the flames, my body blistering as embers clung to my skin. My wolf howled, frantic, furious. For every rebel I had slain, they had carved vengeance into my people. And I, by trusting her, had handed them the reason. I found her in the chaos, veil torn, ash streaking her face as she helped a child escape the smoke. Her eyes locked on mine, wide, desperate. I should have hated her in that moment, should have seen her as the spark that set this blaze. But instead, my chest ached with something I couldn't name. She came to me, her voice breaking through the roar of fire. "They knew. They always strike back harder. You can't stop them all." "I will," I snarled, though my voice cracked. Guilt gnawed at me, sharp and endless. I had chosen her, chosen trust, chosen heart, and now blood slicked the stones of my fortress because of it. We dragged survivors into the courtyard, the night filled with sobs and smoke. My counsel whispered treason, my wolf whispered mate, and I knew, with sick clarity, that the rebellion was moving faster than I could crush it. For every victory, the cost doubled. For every truth she gave me, the blade cut deeper. This was no longer about control, no longer about law. It was about survival, and survival meant keeping her alive, even if it destroyed me. The fortress hadn't yet healed from the fire. Smoke still clung to the rafters, and the scent of charred wood hung in every breath. I should have known the ashes were only cover for another strike. Clarita had gone to the courtyard with the healers, her hands steady as she bound the wounds of children pulled from the blaze. I watched from the balcony above, my wolf pacing, restless. She moved with a strange grace, too careful for someone who claimed to be broken, as if she had been forged for survival in fire and ruin. That was when the air shifted. A scent, sharp and metallic, cut through the smoke. My wolf bristled. Shadows moved at the edge of the courtyard, too smooth, too silent. "Guards," I began, but it was already too late. The assassins struck like lightning. Blades glinted in torchlight, ropes snapped taut, and in the chaos, they cut straight toward her. They didn't come for the council, or for me. They came for her. Clarita's cry rang out as they dragged her from the healer's side, a knife pressed to her throat. She fought, gods, she fought, elbows slamming, teeth bared, but they were trained for this. Chains glittered in their hands, shackling her wrists before she could twist free. I vaulted the balcony rail, landing hard, rage exploding through me. My wolf surged, snarling, claws ripping through flesh as I carved down the first two assassins in my path. Blood sprayed, screams split the night, but the leader only smiled, a scarred giant with eyes black as pitch. Not the mastermind I'd feared. His presence was precise, brutal. He was the blade, not the brain. His men fell into brutal choreography around him. Strikes, retreats, the practiced cruelty of an army that answers to a higher command. He yanked her close, using her body as shield, the chain around her throat glinting in the firelight. "Even kings can bleed," he hissed, dragging her backward toward the shadows. "Release her!" I roared, my voice half human, half wolf. "Now!" Her eyes found mine then, wide, terrified, defiant. And in that moment, I knew nothing else mattered. Not throne, not law, not the rebellion clawing at my walls. Only her. I charged, tearing apart everything in my way. The courtyard became slaughter, guards and assassins tangled in blood and steel. My wolf howled, feral, unstoppable. But even as I killed, even as the ground ran red beneath me, the scarred captain, the lieutenant, the second in command, retreated, dragging her into the dark, her chains rattling like funeral bells. His retreat was measured, knowing. He did not flee as one who feared me. He withdrew as one who obeyed orders from a hand I could not yet see. Her scream cut through me, raw and shattering. "Bennett!" The sound of my name on her lips broke something final inside me. I felt control snap. I was no longer king, no longer judge, no longer bound by law. I was wolf. I was mate. I was destruction itself. And I would tear down the world to bring her back. They brought her back in chains. The courtyard massacre was still fresh in my bones, blood drying beneath my claws, when the scarred lieutenant returned. Not as shadow, but as spectacle. He dragged Clarita through the gates at dawn, her veil torn, wrists bound, her hair tangled with ash. A trophy. A message. A wound he pressed into me for all to see. Guards swarmed, blades raised, but the second in command only laughed, his teeth bared. "Your Majesty," he sneered, shoving her forward. "Your whore of a wolf belongs to us. She carries our blood, our codes, our loyalty, and she has lied to you from the start." The council convened in chaos, their whispers sharp as knives. Ministers pressed into the chamber, robes rustling like wings of carrion birds. They had smelled smoke, blood, weakness. Now they smelled treason. Clarita stood before me, chains rattling with every shallow breath. She kept her chin lifted, though her eyes darted once, only once toward me. It was enough to gut me. "Speak, Omega," a minister barked. "Tell the truth of who you serve." The scarred lieutenant gripped her shoulders, forcing her down onto her knees. His voice cut like steel. "Tell them, or I'll carve the words into your skin." Silence. Then her whisper. "I was sent by the rebellion." The words slammed into me like a blade between ribs. My wolf snarled, pacing in my chest, every instinct demanding I strike down the one who dared make her speak them. But there it was, the confession, raw and undeniable. The chamber erupted. Ministers shouted over one another, "Spy! Burn her! The law is clear!" Their voices blurred into a roar, pressing against my skull until I could hardly breathe. I looked at her. She did not look back. Her gaze was fixed on the stone beneath her knees, her shoulders rigid, as if she bore the weight of the world itself. A spy. My spy. My brother's spy. My wolf howled, not in fury this time, but in anguish. End it. End her. Kill her quickly. Better your claws than their fire. I gripped the arms of my throne until the stone cracked beneath my hands. My control faltered, my vision red. I had built my reign on fear, on the promise that betrayal meant death. And now the betrayal stood in chains before me, and the council demanded her blood. Clarita lifted her head then, tears shining like shards of glass. "Bennett," she whispered, voice trembling but clear. "I never meant to—" "Enough!" a minister shouted, his face purple with rage. "End her now, Majesty, or we will!" The walls closed in. Rage, despair, the ghost of my Luna's scream, and the echo of Clarita's voice, tangled with chains and truth. My wolf begged again, "Kill her, spare her the fire." And I sat there, king of nothing, torn between the law I had sworn to uphold and the mate I could not let go. The council chamber froze as a voice I had buried with the dead slithered through the air. "Execute her, brother, or die with her." Every hair on my body bristled. The crowd parted, ministers stumbling back as though the shadow itself had walked into the room. And perhaps it had. He stepped into the torchlight. My brother. Scarred, gaunt, eyes lit with a hatred so sharp it looked like fire caught in ice. I had seen his body fall once, long ago on the battlefield. I had mourned him, burned for him, carried his ghost in my blood. But he had not died. He had hidden. How? My voice cracked, torn between rage and disbelief. "How are you standing here?" He smiled, a bitter, broken thing. "Because you left me. You crowned yourself on my corpse. And while you sat on that throne, I crawled through mud, through grave pits, through the teeth of men who wanted my flesh. I lived. And every day I dreamed of watching you choke on what you call power." My wolf snarled, but I could not breathe. Clarita knelt at his feet, chains still binding her. His hand brushed her shoulder like a brand, a claim, and she did not recoil, because she had no choice. "You dare," I hissed, stepping down from the throne. "You dare stand in my hall? You dare call yourself a leader when you traded loyalty for shadows?" Loyalty. His laughter was jagged, unholy. "I was loyal, and it got me left behind. Forgotten. You carved a kingdom from my blood. Now I will carve it back. Unless—" His eyes glinted as he leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that cut bone deep. "You kill her. Prove you are still king. Spill your mate's blood, and I will let you live. Fail, and I burn this palace to the ground with you in it." The chamber swam around me. Ministers watched, pale and silent. My wolf battered against my ribs, howling in grief and rage. Clarita lifted her gaze, tears trembling on her lashes, as if she had already accepted the fire. My brother's words hung like chains. Kill her, or die with her. My lips parted, a whisper slipping out unbidden, raw and hollow. Maybe love was the lie all along. The blood moon bled across the sky, a red eye glaring down on us all. The courtyard stank of pitch and fear, the pyre stacked high, waiting for her body. Clarita stood bound at the center, chains cutting into her wrists, her veil torn, her face pale in the moonlight. I had agreed. Gods help me, I had agreed. Because the council demanded it. Because the law demanded it. Because my brother's ultimatum had left me no choice. I had told myself it was the right thing, the necessary thing, the king's thing. And yet, as I walked toward her, every step felt like betrayal grinding into bone. My wolf tore at me, howling in anguish, begging me to stop. But I was no longer alpha. I was prisoner to law, to throne, to the ghosts of every betrayal that had come before. She lifted her head when I reached her, and in her eyes I saw no fear, only sorrow, only quiet resignation. "Bennett," she whispered, her voice cracked but steady. "Don't let them see you break." I cupped her face, my claws biting into my own skin to keep from tearing the chains apart. "I am already broken," I said. The council roared for her burning. My ministers shrieked for fire, for justice. My brother's shadow lingered at the edge of the flames, smiling like a man who had already won. And then, I kissed her. Not as king, not as executioner, not even as wolf, as man, as mate, as everything I had spent my life denying. Her lips trembled beneath mine, soft, desperate, a final prayer carved in flesh. And just like that, the world changed. Her skin burned, not with fire, but with light. A searing mark flared across her throat, curling down her collarbone, glowing beneath the blood moon. The bond mark, visible to all, unmistakable, irrevocable. Gasps split the night. Ministers shrieked, guards faltered. My brother's smile vanished. "Mate!" My wolf howled inside me, the sound tearing through my marrow. Clarita's eyes widened, shimmering with pain and awe. She whispered against my lips, "Now they know." And the council, mad with fear and tradition, screamed louder than ever, "Burn her! Burn the spy!" And in that moment I knew, law had become my enemy and love my only truth. The courtyard seethed with firelight, the council shrieking like a nest of carrion birds, the pyre snapping as if eager for her flesh. Clarita trembled in her chains, the glow of the bond mark still burning bright across her skin. Proof, condemnation, salvation, all in one. Her lips parted, breath shallow, eyes locked on mine. "Love is the sharpest trap," she whispered. The words cut me deeper than any blade. She had been trained to believe them, to wield them as armor, as warning. But in that moment, they sounded like confession, like surrender. And still, my wolf stirred, not in grief, not in fury, in clarity. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe it had already ruined me. But I saw her then. Not spy, not rebel, not traitor. Mate, my mate. And if love was a trap, then it was one I would walk into willingly, because it was also salvation. I stepped forward, raising my voice above the council's roar. "Enough!" The chamber of ministers froze, every eye turning to me. My brother watched from the shadows, smile twisting back onto his scarred face, certain I would bow to the law, certain I would kill her. "I will not burn her," I said, my words rolling like thunder, gasps, outrage. A minister spat, "Majesty, the law!" "The law," I cut him off, my claws scraping stone, "was written by men who feared love more than they feared death. It is not justice, it is cowardice." Clarita's gaze shone, her lips trembling as though she could not believe what she heard. I turned on the ministers, my wolf surging through my voice. "I reject your decree. She is mine, my mate, and I will tear down every pyre, every law, every throne before I let you touch her again." The council erupted in fury, voices clashing like steel. Some shouted treason, others backed away, fear in their eyes. My brother's smirk faltered, just for a heartbeat. I bent close to her, letting the council see the truth in my defiance. "Love may be the sharpest trap," I whispered, "but it is also the only thing worth bleeding for." And with those words, I shattered the man I had been. The king of fear was dead. The mate had risen. The courtyard boiled with fury and fear, torches snapping in the night wind, wolves growling low in their throats. Clarita stood beside me, her wrists raw from chains, the bond mark still glowing across her skin for all to see. It was proof, yes, but to the council, it was blasphemy. The ministers shrieked over one another, their words a torrent of poison. "He protects a spy! The throne is tainted! Burn them both!" Their robes swirled like carrion birds circling a dying beast. I lifted my hand, claws unsheathed, and the noise cut off like a blade. "No more," I growled, my voice echoing against the stone. "You've hidden behind law and fire long enough. Tonight, your corruption ends." Gasps, outrage. One minister dared step forward, spittle flecking his lips. "Majesty, you defy centuries of law. I defy liars who twist law to fatten themselves while wolves starve." My voice cracked like thunder, shaking the walls. "Your greed poisoned the pack. Your cowardice birthed this rebellion, and your time is over." For a heartbeat, silence. Then a sound, boots striking stone. A cluster of hooded figures slipped into the torchlight, weapons drawn. My warriors tensed, but Clarita raised her voice sharp and steady. "Hold!" The rebels pulled back their hoods, revealing faces hard with hunger and hope. They did not strike me. They bowed, to her. "We fight for freedom," their leader said, voice raw. "Not for thrones, not for your brother, for the pack." Clarita looked at me, eyes wide, her chest rising and falling like she could hardly believe it. And in that moment, I saw it too, the fracture. The rebellion was not one beast but many heads, some venomous, some still beating with truth. I stepped toward them, my wolf pressing against my skin, making my words carry like command. "Then stand with me, not as rebels, not as traitors, as wolves. Together, we tear out the corruption festering in our pack. Together, we free both sides, from ministers who gorge on fear and from killers who serve only blood." A murmur rippled through the courtyard. My loyal wolves, Pierce, Dallas, Camden, moved to my side, snarls on their lips but resolve burning in their eyes. The rebels joined them, blades crossing with claws in a promise of unity. The line between us vanished, forged into one. The ministers backed away, their power slipping like water through broken stone. But I saw shadows shift at the edges of the firelight, the scarred lieutenant, the assassin's second in command, watching with a predator's smile. And behind him, the shape I had dreaded, the brother I had once buried, eyes alight with hatred. The air grew heavier, charged, as if the blood moon itself held its breath. Clarita's hand brushed mine, her voice a whisper only I could hear. "It's starting." I tightened my grip on her fingers, my wolf snarling for blood. "Then let it start with us." And with that, we turned toward the throne hall, toward the fight that would decide everything. The blood moon bled its light across the courtyard as the air cracked with snarls and steel. The moment the ministers scattered, the shadows lunged forward. My brother and his scarred second-in-command stepped into the firelight, flanked by wolves twisted in rebellion, their eyes burning with hunger for blood. My wolf surged, shredding the thin skin of control I still clung to. Bones cracked, muscles tore and knit, fur burst across my skin in a rush of fire. The shift ripped through me, and when I hit the stones on 4 legs, the earth trembled. My brother met my gaze, his own body breaking and reshaping, his wolf a dark mirror of mine. Where my fur was silver shot with black, his was coal and crimson, his eyes glowing like coals from a fire that never died. The assassin lieutenant grinned, his scars twisting grotesquely as he shifted too. His wolf was massive, shoulders rippling, jaws gleaming with broken fangs sharpened to points. He paced, a predator in orbit, waiting for the moment to strike. We clashed. The sound was thunder, the snap of jaws, the scrape of claws against stone, the grunt of wolves crashing together. My brother came at me first, fast, his weight driving me back as his teeth raked my shoulder. Pain seared, hot and sharp, but my wolf roared and twisted, hurling him off. The assassin lieutenant lunged then, aiming for my throat. But I rolled, claws raking deep across his flank, blood spraying hot into the night. The courtyard became a storm. Rebels and loyalists tore into each other at the edges, ministers shrieking as they fled, firelight painting everything in flickering red. Clarita's voice rang out through the chaos, shouting orders, rallying those who still believed in more than death. But all my focus narrowed to the two wolves before me, my brother, my blood, and the beast he had chained to his side. He struck again, faster this time. Our jaws locked, teeth grinding against teeth, his growl vibrating through my bones. Submit, his eyes seemed to say. Fall, and the pack is mine. Never. I slammed him back, stone cracking under his skull. For a heartbeat, I had him pinned. But then the assassin crashed into me, tearing me away. His jaws clamped down on my leg, dragging me down. Pain flared white-hot, but rage was stronger. My claws sank into his eye, tearing him off in a spray of blood and howls. My brother circled, chest heaving, eyes alight with madness. "You should have killed her," he snarled, his voice half-human, half-beast. "Love made you weak. It always does." I lunged at him, our bodies colliding, claws tearing fur and flesh. He bit deep into my side. I drove my teeth into his neck. We rolled, a blur of fury and blood, each strike echoing with years of betrayal. And then, suddenly, I had him. My paw pressed against his chest, claws digging near his throat. My jaws hovered inches from his face, his breath ragged, his eyes wide with fury, and something dangerously close to fear. The assassin snarled, circling, waiting for me to falter. My wolf growled low, every muscle screaming, every breath fire in my lungs. All roads had led here. I stood over my brother, the blade of choice sharp between us. Not steel, but fang and law, love and hate. The fight was not done. But in this moment, I had him where the pack could see, and the blood moon burned witness above. The world shrank to the taste of blood in my mouth, the sting of claws in my flesh, the pounding of my heart against the weight of the blood moon. My brother writhed beneath me, his breath ragged, his eyes full of hatred and grief. My paw pressed down on his chest, claws poised for the final strike. "Do it!" he snarled through bared fangs. "Kill me! Prove you're no different than the monster you always called me." But before I could answer, before I could even breathe, the assassin lord struck. The scarred beast came from the side, his jaws snapping at my throat, his massive body slamming into mine with bone-crushing force. We tumbled across the courtyard, stones splitting beneath us, firelight scattering as wolves scrambled out of the way. His weight pinned me, his breath foul and hot against my muzzle. His teeth scraped my jugular, a hair's breadth from ending me. My wolf howled, thrashing, claws digging into him. The assassin was relentless, faster than any I had fought, more brutal than any soldier I had faced. His scars were badges of survival, each one carved by blood spilled in shadows. He fought like a wolf who had nothing left but hatred. He bit into my shoulder, tearing deep, and agony blinded me. My roar split the air, echoing off stone and sky. He thought he had me. He thought he had broken me. But then, her voice. "Bennett!" Clarita's cry cut through the chaos, sharp as a blade. I turned my head just enough to see her, standing unchained among the firelight, a spear clutched in her trembling hands. Her eyes blazed with defiance, with faith, with love. The sight fueled me. I surged, my claws ripping free, driving into the assassin's ribs. He howled, thrashing, but I would not let go. I tore into him with the ferocity of every wound, every betrayal, every night of emptiness I had endured. My teeth closed around his throat, and with a final snap of bone, his body went still. Silence. Then the thud of his corpse hitting stone. The assassin lord was dead. I rose, staggering, blood matting my fur. My chest heaved, my wounds burned, but my wolf stood tall. I turned back to my brother, still sprawled on the ground, his eyes wide. For the first time, fear trembled there, not of me, but of what I had become. I loomed over him, teeth bared, ready to finish it. My wolf screamed for it. My claws itched for it, but something deeper held me back. I saw not an enemy, but the boy I had once run beside, the brother I had once loved. He had chosen hatred. I would not. I pulled back, my growl rumbling low. No, you are not my kill. You are my shame to bear. Live with it. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Wolves stared, jaws parted, waiting for blood, but none came. Instead, I turned. Clarita stood at the center of it all, the blood moon's glow painting her like a queen of fire and shadow. Her mark still burned, proof undeniable, alive for every eye to see. I walked to her, my wolf still half wild, blood dripping from my jaws. And in front of the ministers, the rebels, the loyalists, and my broken brother, I pressed my forehead to hers. The bond flared between us, searing, undeniable, eternal. She is mine, I growled, my voice shaking the night. My mate, my queen, law be damned. The courtyard fell silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The old order shattered with those words, the firelight flickering as though even the flames bent to them. And under the gaze of the blood moon, I knew the reign of fear was over. A new bond had begun. The assassin's body still smoked on the stones, his blood seeping into the cracks of the courtyard. My brother lay broken but alive, his gaze hollow, stripped of the power he had stolen. The night air was thick with ash and silence, every wolf waiting, wondering if I would claim this moment with the same fire as the old kings, or if I would falter. I straightened, every wound screaming, and faced the ministers. Their robes were torn, their faces pale, their lips trembling with fear. They had hidden behind law for so long, but tonight there was no law to shield them. You fattened yourselves while wolves starved, I growled, my voice carrying like thunder. You twisted justice to fill your coffers. You fed rebellion with your greed. This blood, I gestured to the dead assassin, is yours as much as his. They fell to their knees, one after another, trembling. Mercy, majesty, one whispered. I bared my teeth. Mercy is not for you, truth is. I turned, raising my voice for all to hear. Your corruption is ended. Every decree written in greed is struck down. The old law that condemned mates as weakness burned with tonight's fire. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Wolves shifted uneasily, packs that had lived for centuries under those laws staring at me with wide, fearful eyes. I stepped closer to Clarita, letting her bond mark gleam in the blood moon's light. From this night forward, love is no crime. Mate bonds are no weakness. They are strength. And any wolf who dares say otherwise will answer to me. Her hand found mine, steady, grounding, the only warmth left in the cold night. I turned then to the rebels, hoods pulled back, weapons lowered, faces wary. You who fought for freedom, you are pardoned, not as rebels, as wolves. You are pack again if you will stand under this banner. No more law of fear, no more throne of ash, only blood, bond, and truth. For a long moment, silence. Then one knelt, another followed. Soon, the courtyard rippled with the sight of wolves lowering their heads, not to law, not to fear, but to a new truth. Relief loosened my chest, exhaustion dragged at my bones. But beneath it, hope stirred, fragile as dawn. Still, I felt their eyes. Hundreds of them. Packs watching, weighing, wondering if I would keep this vow, if I would truly rule with love, and I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Dawn broke over the fortress, a pale gold light chasing away the smoke and blood of the night before. The courtyard that had once echoed with screams now stood quiet, hushed as though the stones themselves held their breath. For the first time in years, I felt something I had thought long buried. Peace. Clarita walked beside me, no longer veiled, no longer bound. Her bond mark gleamed proudly at her throat, not as a brand of shame, but as a crown. She carried herself not as a spy, not as a captive, but as my equal, my mate. The packs gathered in the courtyard, their eyes weary but watchful. Ministers who had survived bowed low, chastened, their power broken. Rebels stood shoulder to shoulder with loyalists, united in a fragile truce born of fire. For once, silence was not fear. It was hope. The old rites of mating had been done in secrecy for generations, hidden like sins. But we stood in the open, beneath the rising sun. Wolves formed a circle around us, voices rising in the low hum of an ancient chant that had not been heard in decades. The sound was not law. It was not decree. It was bond, living, breathing, undeniable. I took Clarita's hands, my claws still scarred, my palms rough with battle. She looked up at me, her eyes shining, tears trembling but unshed. Not king and spy, I whispered for her alone. Not prisoner and judge. She smiled, soft and fierce. Mate and mate. I pressed my forehead to hers, the world narrowing to her scent, her warmth, her heartbeat steady against mine. When our lips met, the bond seared through us like dawn itself, blazing bright enough for all to feel. A cheer broke from the circle, wolves howling, voices rising to the sky. I turned to them, holding her hand high, letting them see what had been forged from ruin. No more crowns of fear, I declared. No more law of fire. Today we rise as one free pack, not bound by greed, not torn by betrayal, bound by truth, bound by bond. The howls rose higher, echoing across stone and sky, a promise carried into the new day. And as I looked at Clarita, the woman who had once walked into my chamber as a supposed tribute, who had survived my bed, who had broken every chain around my heart, I thought the words that would stay with me forever. How could I have been so blind to think love was a weakness when it had always been my crown?